Welcome, everyone. Today's topic is one you might not have thought about. Which sounds sound funny? And I'm talking with a good friend of mine, Lindsay, who also does stand-up comedy in English and in Spanish as a second language, if you can believe that. And spoiler, it's not just comedians who should be thinking about how our words and pronunciation changes how people see us. Now, this episode does contain some adult themes, so if you have little kids around, I suggest using headphones for this one. And now, on with the show. I'm Bianca, your personal American accent coach, and I'm here to help you master an American accent in English because your voice is your choice when it comes to how you sound. If you want to see the full video of the episode, it's available at Accent Coach Bianca on YouTube. Hey, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me today. How have you been?
Hey, I am so excited to be on the Accent Coach Bianca podcast. If you like coaches, if you are named Bianca, this is the show for you.
And for my audience, if your name is not Bianca, even better, because that would be awkward.
It would be great if you just said, if you're not Bianca, get out of here. I don't want to hear you. No, no matter what your name is, I'm very glad that you're here because Bianca is an awesome accent coach. I was her marketing person for a while. And we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah, at least 6 years. So ever since I've been to Mexico, ever since I lived in Mexico, we met at a friend who does a group every Saturday, and we go to various lunch places. And so that's how we met. We met in that group. And then you got married not long after that. And I spoke at your wedding. And we knew each other really, really well. So this is a special episode because most people I interview, maybe it's the first time I've ever talked to them, or we've chatted a bit on Instagram, but I don't really know them that well. So this is going to be super exciting. And also, I think for the listeners, it's interesting too, because we're both native speakers as well. So often, we'll have a mix of things. And so this might be a little challenging for some people because we might go a little bit faster. We might be using vocabulary that neither of us normally would with other people who were normally around, because when we're in Mexico, we have to kind of like pick and choose our words carefully sometimes so that communication is preserved. So we're going to go at full speed today, guys. Feel free to rewind, to listen to something, to slow it down, but this is going to be a really interesting episode. But first, Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit more about you? I mean, I know you really well, but our listeners today probably don't.
Yeah, so I'm professionally a marketer. So that I'm sort of marketer by day, but by the cover of night, I am what's known as a comedy nerd. A comedy nerd is someone who wishes they were a comedian. So instead of getting into comedy or becoming like a comedy writer or whatever, we sort of lurk online on like comedians' YouTubes, and we watch a lot of comedy specials. We pay attention to who writes what sketch on Saturday Night Live. You know, like we really pride ourselves on like knowing who kind of the up and coming like female comics are, the queer comics, or, you know, just the next big straight guy that's taken over the world. And all great. And so I am just 100% obsessed with comedy. I have done a little bit of stand-up comedy myself. I really, really enjoy just doing like a fun open mic night, but it's just comedy itself really fascinates me.
And I'm going to stop you there for a second because I want all of our listeners to know that you are awesome on stage. And when we were friends for a long time, and I had no idea you were into comedy. And you said one day, hey guys, you want to come and see me at an open mic night? And I was like, I'm going to go support my friend. She's just gonna bomb, but I'm gonna be there for her. And oh my God, it was fantastic.
Oh, I know that feeling. So I work with writers a lot. This is kind of a side hustle of mine. And whenever someone says like, oh, I'm gonna send you a short story that is from my soul, it is of me, it is from me, I sweat like I can't tell you. Because when I know that someone is emotionally attached to a piece of writing, I know that piece of writing is garbage. And I have to act like it's great. And it's so hard. It's so hard because the professional in me wants to be like, no. We're going to take this whole thing apart and we're going to rewrite it like this. But the friend in me is like, you can't do that. So I know that position very, very well.
And you know, I'm starting this YouTube channel now, and like the kind of writing that I have to do for the YouTube channel is so different than any other writing I've done. And I have people kind of editing and helping me with the script a little bit. And they're like, nope, doesn't work. I'm like, but it does. It's so funny. They're like, it's not funny. You're not making sense. And I'm like, but it makes sense in my head. And it's so different. And not to get emotionally attached from that is really difficult. And then the cherry on the top, by the way, the cherry on the top, people, I all want you to know, she also performed in Spanish, and it was hilarious too. So I just want to put that out there that I'm very much in awe of you, that number one, that you would just get on the stage. Because I know when you and I are together, we're just cracking up and like we can't even get any work done. Like literally last night we were together, we're in our writing group, and like nothing got done because you and I were just off on tangents, like playing off of each other.
You helped me develop a business idea, so I politely disagree. I'm going to put my little polite foot down, my dainty foot, and say,
we got a little work done. We got a little work done, but we got a lot more laughing done, I think.
And I took your suggestions and I wrote a little mini landing page, and I was very happy with it. So but we did like goof around quite a bit as well.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Because I think for me, I don't know about you living in Mexico, but I find it difficult to really let loose my sense of humor with other people, even in English, because, I have to make sure that everything is understood. So the kinds of jokes I feel like I can make are a bit more limited. The kind of funny that I can be is often very limited because I prefer humor that's got a lot of puns in it, that's a lot of like a lot of sarcasm, things like that, which I can't do with everybody when I'm here. So when I'm with you, like I can just like let it fly. And it's so funny. I think it's so funny to have that.
And you don't know how much culture affects your humor until you leave your country. Like I always say, the true test of comedy is, can you be funny in more than one language? And when you see a comedian that has mastered comedy in more than one language, you're seeing someone who does what I love to do, which is analyze. Someone who can really sit and think about language and think about the way words work together and think like, well, how is this sentence funnier than this sentence, and taking that lens on it. So that's kind of what I wanted to get into today. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because for me, being funny in Spanish, it tends to happen in the moment when like my guard is down. Whereas if I think about it too much, if I try and put in a reference or something, oh my gosh, silence, crickets, room tone, like all those things. But if I just trust myself and I'm around people with whom I'm comfortable, I can sometimes land a joke. I can sometimes even translate a joke from English and Spanish, but it's tricky. It's very, very tricky. So I really admire comedians who can perform in completely different cultures, completely different languages. I find that really fascinating and really brave.
Oh, yeah. I've had two of my clients, one in Japanese, one in Chinese, and one didn't already do stand-up and they wanted to. And I thought, oh my God, this is a lot of work you're getting into. They came from an acting background. And the other one had already been doing some stand-up and wanted to kind of polish it a little bit. So I think what you said about analyzing it is super important, not just in language, but it can make us funnier, or it can help us express ourselves better in a way that makes us feel more true and authentic, to ourselves, because we need that joy, in our life. And when you can't get it, it makes you feel horrible. I've had so many people say, I'm just not funny in English, or I'm just not myself.
Yeah, I know that feeling so well. I even made a whole joke about like how I'm just not funny in Spanish. And I said, in Spanish, I'm very sad and serious, but in English, I have friends. And it's just true. Like when you're constantly thinking about grammar, pronunciation, the right slang and all that, it's so much harder to be funny.
Sounds like what we're saying is, you were talking about analysis, and I think a lot of us feel this like paralysis by analysis. So I want to say, let's analyze it, but when we're in the moment, like you said, maybe just let our guard down, relax, and do and appreciate what we can do in the moment, right? One thing that's maybe underlying some more difficult things are sounds in general, right? So even when we're little babies, I know you have a little baby now at home, sounds are funny. Sounds are funny. So tell me about sounds. How do you feel about that?
So the first sounds that babies make are bilabial sounds, which are two lip sounds. That's why the word for mother in most languages is ma or mama, because that's an easy sound for babies to make. Do you think that a bilabial sound is funny?
Maybe.
So we can actually say that it is a less funny sound than something else. So what I think is really interesting is the funniest sounds are the sounds we learn later. So those early sounds, those ooh, ah, mama, mama, like all the things I hear my son saying, which I greatly enjoy because he's my son and because he's so cute and he has these great little expressions he makes. I'm just noticing like, wow, the other sounds, the ones that I think about a lot and like kind of organizing them, that comes so much later. So I just think that's so interesting. So what we're doing right now is we're playing with volume. So my son really likes to see how loud his voice can be and then how soft it can be. He's really curious about teeth. So he wants to like feel everybody's teeth. He wants to feel everybody's lips. And then he wants to feel his own. So he's constantly like sticking his tongue like all the way out and like dragging it like across his teeth and stuff, which is great because, you know, I want him to have all those verbal skills. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think are the funniest sounds in English.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking on not about language or a particular language so much, but, you know, there's different kinds of comedy, and it seems like bodily sounds always like elicit a laugh depending on where you are. So unrelated to language, I feel like some sounds are just funnier than others. And like maybe contextually also, for example, you tell a joke and then you hear, ching, you know, and you're like, was that joke funny? You know, or you hear wah, 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 you know, and I think there are certain sounds not related to language at all. But I think it's a great question because are there universal sounds that anybody would consider like just kind of like a funny sound? For example, in quite a lot of languages, most of the time you're making a noise when your air is going out, right? So when you look at a chart of consonants, they're called pulmonic consonants because I'm breathing out as I'm creating the sound. Well, there are a lot of languages, I don't want to say a lot, there are languages where you make a sound as you're breathing in, right? Which might sound a little weird to us and therefore funny, right? Like I might try to make this noise and I would be like, that's weird, that's funny, you know, in that kind of way. Or if I were listening to a language where there was a sound present that isn't present in my language, like maybe for other people, a TH sound is really, really funny. I don't know, maybe they're laughing their asses off. I have no idea.
I thought the same thing. I thought, I bet a TH sound is funnier than another sound because that's really in English, Arabic, and probably a couple more that I don't know about. But it's not that common. It's actually fairly uncommon. And that's why it's so hard for so many ESL people to learn because that mouth shape and those muscles are not something that most people do in their language. So I was teaching English in Shanghai, China, and the sound that I noticed every English-speaking colleague, friend, you know, student had a really hard time with was the TH sound. So instead of saying the TH,
like like thank you,
they would instead say thank you.
Oh, S like a snake, like
or they would say thank,
like F like a Friday.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. They couldn't articulate the TH. Did you happen to notice if they thought it was funny, or was that just us imagining, oh, they must think it's funny?
Yeah, I think that's us being a little ethnocentric.
Right.
Yeah, like, oh my God, we are so crazy and weird with our TH. Like, no, it's not like that at all. There's actually one sound in English that has been scientifically measured to be the funniest sound. And it falls into a very specific category of consonants. So think about different types of consonants that we have. So rattle off a few that you can
Okay, so we have, let's think about vowels first. If we start at that end of the spectrum, we've got vowels, we've got semi-vowels, we've got what we call liquid sounds, which are L's and R's. Then we're getting into more like standard consonant territory. We've got what we call fricatives because they make some friction sound. Then we have what are called affricates, which is like kind of a stop and then a friction like ch, as in chocolate. We also have just plain old stops like a P or a T or a K. You know, there's a lot of things. I think now that you're mentioning it, I feel like our glottal stop sound is kind of funny when you think about it. You're like, ooh, like when your baby, you know, you drop the keys for the baby and you say, uh-oh.
Oh, good guess.
To me, that could be funny. Okay, so that's really far in the back of the throat. So those are like kind of like groups of consonants. So which one would it be?
So I'll give you a hint. You just said it like a second ago.
Which one? The glottal stop?
It was before that.
Affricates? Like ch?
Maybe. So I have a little clip I want to play for you.
Oh, perfect.
This one is interesting to me because this is an ESL comedian. I believe his name is Daniel Simonson. And Daniel Simonson has a Norwegian accent.
Okay.
Now, it is not the Norwegian accent that makes him funny. And I am not laughing at him because he's not speaking English perfectly. I want to be really clear about that.
We're not saying that when people don't speak clearly that's funny. We're trying to, no. But there is a type of humor that people are aware of. It's called self-deprecating humor. For example, right, half of my face doesn't work very well because I had a brain tumor. And so I've got this crooked smile. If I were making fun of my own crooked smile in a comedy forum, that might be funny, right? But if you were to make fun of my crooked smile, I probably wouldn't be laughing with you, so
that's
just to say.
That's a very specific type of comedy that's called punching down, and it's really gone out of style. It was very popular in the 1990s. So if you were around in the 90s, you were familiar with like Women, Am I Right? Like that kind of comedy. And the message was, if you're not an awesome dude, like on stage, like I am, you suck and I get to laugh at you. And when that comedy went away, a lot of people got very angry about it because they had felt safe, I guess, in some way, or they had just gotten so used to that type of comedy. And so, when you hear people complaining about like, oh, everyone's so sensitive these days, what they're saying is, I can't punch down anymore. And I personally am very happy that punching down has gone away because I don't want you to get made fun of for having your mouth that can't work. But if you want to make light of it, I think that's your right. I stand to gain nothing by making fun of you. We're going to listen to an opening from a comedian from Norway doing comedy in English and doing English in comedy, which I think is, as I said, so incredible. Like he has a very distinct accent, but he has a clear understanding of what words and what sounds to use to make this audience love him from the get. Now, when comedians do a good opening, it's a total game changer. An opening is designed to do is bring the energy level up, get people laughing, and it's designed to make the audience trust the performer. And Daniel Samuelson has that in spades, and it's why I really, really like him. All right, so let me share this little doodad with you.
Awesome.
How are you guys recently? Are you all suicidal? Don't do it, guys. Don't kill yourself. Especially not now, because it's such a shitty time. So it's gonna make less of an impact. You gotta do it when they won't see it coming. You kill yourself when the economy is booming. And people believe in the future. That's the time to strike.
I think he's so funny. Okay, so really quick, did you find that funny?
You know what's funny? What's funny, in quotes? I wasn't expecting that, and I was like, oh, it's more the topic, though. When you prefaced about his language and English, I thought, oh, he's making a mistake on purpose with the vocabulary. Oh, how are you feeling? Are you feeling suicidal? Like, I thought it was kind of a mistake, but then I thought, but that doesn't work either because suicidal is like a more high-level vocabulary word, right? Like this is a two-level word. And I'm like, okay, that's not what it's it. So like when I hear his intro in the beginning, it's very disarming, right? It's like, whoa. Oh, I didn't. Okay, now I'm feeling more comfortable here with the person because he seems to start almost really like out there high, hard, and like, oh, here's a really like, oh, I did not think we were going to talk about suicide, and so it's a topic that I would not find very like tasteful, for comedy or appropriate, let's say at all. But I'm like, oh, okay, I think I see what he's doing here, just disarming me in a way, right? And so I would say like, I would not be laughing as much as some of these people in the audience were, but I can see that the purpose of it really did work for me. Do you know what I mean?
So I have a reason why I think this is so funny.
Okay.
It's his use of velar consonants.
Okay, explain.
All right. So here's his opening line. He says, let's listen to it.
How are you guys recently?
All right. Most comedians come out and say, how is everyone tonight? He says, how are you all recently? And he hits that T really hard. Listen to it one more time.
Okay.
How are you guys recently?
So he's using his accent to his advantage. He's almost saying recently. He's almost adding a consonant to it, and to really bring that t sound home. Okay. Do you think that the T sound is the funniest sound in the English language?
Now you got me thinking. I'm like, oh, I have to choose the funniest sound in English. Like, I don't know. Now that you mention it, so that's a stop sound, right? And what else he does here is, for people who can't hear it, the difference between a T, let's say in the word take, and the word D and the word down, as we mentioned earlier, right? They're articulated the same in English, right? Your tongue is on the ridge of your mouth, right behind your teeth. And the difference between the two is that you're voicing the D as in dog, da 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 da. So I hear voicing here. So maybe he's exploding the T with a lot more air, and also he's voicing it as well. So it almost sounds like a D to me. So I wonder if the stop sounds are the funniest because you can kind of manipulate them and make them go two different directions, right? You can control the air, you can control the voicing in a different way, so you can kind of mess with them in two different ways. And also, I have a question for you. Does he do it on purpose? Have you seen him not on stage, and does he pronounce his T's in the same way? I'm curious.
Oh, good question. I have not looked for this guy off stage, like in interviews and such, because I like his on stage stuff so much. Maybe I don't want to spoil the illusion. So, true or false, the T sound, or the exploding T, is the funniest sound in English? True or false?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say T is the funniest sound because I can't think of another one that might be funnier. Like, you can mess around with a P, you can mess around with a K, for example. Maybe an H sound, but I feel like T has the most potential because it's got a lot of variations there. Is that true? Is it T?
It is false.
Oh!
All right.
You set me up.
Okay, let's listen to the next part one more time.
All right.
Are you all suicidal? Don't do it, guys.
All right, what are you hearing when he says suicidal?
His D is really popping out to me. It's really extra strong. And also the L as well. So English has something called a dark L and a regular L. And a lot of languages don't have a dark L. And because R's and L's are called liquid sounds, right? So they're kind of between vowels and consonants. So we can mess around with those a lot too. And that's why when people learn English, what they're coming with, what kind of L's and R's they're coming with can cause a lot of difficulties because they might be quite different. So I'm hearing D's and L's here. What about you?
I agree. I feel like the D, the suicide, duh, it almost like jumps out at you. I also hear him drawing out the S just a tiny bit. I almost hear like, I'm thinking about this. Is this something I actually want to say? Because part of comedy, a big part of comedy is surprise, right? You don't want the audience to know what you're going to say next because that's not fun. You have to throw them for a loop, right? And we're not expecting the question, are you all suicidal, at the top of a comedy routine. I think it's genius. And then he says, don't do it, guys, which I love with it, just this deadpan Norwegian face he has. If you're not seeing the video, he just has the ultimate straight man, no expression face, which can be so what he's doing is just looking at the audience and just saying totally deadpan, hey, don't do it, which is such an unexpected, you'd expect him to be like, oh, good. I'm so glad you're all great. I'm so happy to be here at the Comedy Cellar, blah, blah, blah. That's the kind of usual like template start, right? And so he's basically going against type. A comedian is supposed to go out, be excited to be there, introduce themselves, say a little about themselves, talk about where they are. And he's like, no, we're talking about how we all want to be dead right now. Like, that's what we're talking about. All right. So
he's taking the expectations and not delivering on the expectations. And that is part of what makes it funny also.
Yes.
So we've got the sounds, we've got the S, the D, to me, the L, the T, which is related to the D as well. So he's really like, we don't know, he may be kind of overdoing it to sell it a little bit too. We don't know.
Yeah.
But either way, it's a thing that we pay attention to. And I think that's what's important here, right? Like if you're a comedian, you have to probably think about what your strengths are. Whatever that could be physical, that could be, I think you and I were talking last night about a comedy school, right? In Paris, you were saying that somebody realized that their entire like comedic flair lay in nonverbal activities. That's what you're saying, right?
That's actually another Norwegian guy that just won Britain's Got Talent. His name is Viggo Venn. And in attempting to become a comedian, he basically discovered that he's not funny with words at all. but rather funny with his body. And so he went on this really epic journey from standard stand-up jokes to not saying a word. And he is so funny. He beat 2 child singers on Britain's Got Talent, which, I mean, you got to fall on the floor funny to be the kid singer. And he is. I mean, he's just hilarious. And, you know, it's really great.
That's a really good lesson, because for those of us who don't feel like we're funny in another language, maybe that's because we have a secret hidden talent and we're funny in a different way that we haven't discovered yet, you know?
Yeah. It's sometimes someone telling you, like, you're just not funny, or this writing is terrible, or whatever. In a weird way, it kind of sets us free to find what we're actually good at, you know?
To look around.
It took me years of failing in education to finally realize, like, what I like about education is the analysis. I like the writing. I like the reading. That's what I should be focusing on. I should not be focusing on a job that's so political, that's so diplomatic. Like, those are the things I hate doing. I couldn't do it. But by facing that, like, I was able to actually find what I really enjoy. Okay. I want to get back to our video.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Don't kill yourself. Especially not now, because it's such a shitty time. So it's going to make less of an impact. You gotta do it when they won't see it coming. You kill yourself when the economy is booming. And people believe in the future. That's the time to strike.
All right. So he uses some words here that are so smart. So first he just says, don't kill yourself. Again, that very deadpan thing. And then he expands on that a bit. And then he goes, do it when the economy's booming. That's when you make a real impact. And he says, wait until the economy's booming. That's the time to strike. Is there any sound that's jumping out at you here?
Oh, it sounds like a bunch of those S's again, right? You said he was holding his S kind of long. Yeah, economies. Well, the first time around, I remarked on a lot of D sounds again. But then I thought, oh, there's a lot of S's in there, too, that I'm paying attention to. Also, kind of like above the level of the specific sound, the phoneme, I'm also hearing how his vowels are and how his long vowels don't quite sound long enough to me. But to me, that signals, oh, yeah, he's playing up the accent as part of this, right? Because I think at least in this recording, he's in New York, right? So that can be a thing, too. So he could be using his accent, again, as a tool as well, right? So instead of like ignoring it or trying to change it in some way to fit in, you can just use what you've got, you know, and capitalize on that in a way. So what about you? What do you hear there?
I have a quick question for you. Do you think the S sound is the funniest sound in the English language?
Oh, no. You're going to ask me this again.
There is one sound that is the funniest. Do you think it's the S sound?
I think it could be, because, again, you can take that. Well, okay. So the S sound itself has a lot of variety that people maybe don't realize, right? And it's kind of complex. You wouldn't think about it. But you need to make a hissing sound. You need to create a lot of friction, a lot of force. And then that air needs to smack up against something in order to make an S sound. And the way a lot of us do that is we put the tip of our tongue up against the ridge and we kind of create a small little channel to direct all the force to. And it usually does that. It bounces off of there at the back of the teeth, right? But some people bounce it off of their lip in a way, right? Some people make an S a little bit differently. There's also other variations where an S, you can move your tongue way forward. And that kind of sounds like this, almost like I'm whistling a little bit. So that kind of classification, that's called syllabants. So syllabants can vary widely. I could see how that could be funny. So I'm going to say yes. S is the new favorite, funniest sound. Am I right?
Incorrect. All right. So he does use the scientifically proven funniest sound.
Okay.
In this opening.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to give you one more.
No. I don't trust you anymore.
You shouldn't.
I'm never going on a game show if you're the host.
Good call. Do not trust me ever.
You keep tricking me. Yeah.
All right. So this is a lovely comedian named Tig Notaro. And Tig Notaro is kind of infamous for really digging into life's like very simple everyday things and finding funny things that we do with our bodies, with our faces, and with our voices. All right. So here she's talking about something we do with our voices. And she also uses the funniest sound, but she's very careful with it. Very, very good. She almost slips it in. It's almost a little ninja. It just comes in and then it disappears really quick. All right. So let's see what you think.
I'm going to listen very carefully.
I like when people make that noise after they laugh. Because it's like you're reminiscing about 1 second ago. Remember 1 second ago? Yeah, I do.
All right.
I'm only listening to S's and T's now. Thank you very much. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, really?
No, I'm kidding. I am hyper-focused on this S, but is it the H then? Because originally I was thinking of the plosives and the air.
Did she make an H sound?
Well, she was right. It was the air that was coming out.
You're right. I
was thinking about that. So it's not that. It's not the S's. I'm stumped. What is it?
The funniest sound in the English language is the K sound.
Oh, back of the throat then. When I was saying earlier, the glottal stop is the farthest back you can go, but it's kind of difficult and not all varieties of English are going to, consistently use it the same way. So I could see how the next best thing is K's and G's right back there. So K's and G's, let's say this really loud, really proud. K's and G's are the funniest scientifically proven sound in English, correct?
So there are several sounds that are considered the all-time funniest. So it's the K and C sound. So do you remember our Norwegian friend Daniel? He said the word, how are you all recently? So that T sound was very intentional.
Yes.
And then he said things like, don't kill yourself.
Okay.
That's the time to strike, impact. So he's using these very hard sounds and he's pairing them with sounds.
Yes.
That is intentional. That is a very smart way to write a joke on top of all the psychology, the darkness, the deadpan, like all that kind of stuff. That is how you do something called bring it home or land a joke. If you give it the right sound. So if we go back to Tig Notaro, so she says
noise after they laugh. Because it's like you're reminiscing about 1 second ago.
Okay. She says it's like you're reminiscing about 1 second ago. What if she said it's as if you are reminiscing about 1 moment ago?
Yeah, it just doesn't hit me the same way.
For some reason, English speakers like comedy with hard consonant sounds. And here's the thing, we don't know why. There's no clear explanation as to why we need our comedy to have these hard sounds. So just like in writing or in speaking, when you have to really think about what word you're going to put at the end of a sentence, in comedy, you also have to think about what sounds are in that word. So like a really random piece of advice I got about writing a joke was, don't say we were smoking crystal meth, say we were smoking crack. Like just things like that. There are just little changes you can make to the word. And by the way, I do not smoke any drugs.
Total disclaimer.
Complete disclaimer. But it's just like if you are trying to bring home a joke, particularly if it's about a very sensitive subject, like unaliving yourself, like, drug use or anything like that. If you choose the wrong sounds, instead of laughing, you will make people concerned. You will make them feel uneasy. And so if you don't know how to really craft a joke, and I do mean craft, like the mechanics of a joke, you actually end up taking all the humor out of it. Whereas if you just pick the right words and you put them in the right places and you emphasize the right sounds, you can start to be really, really funny, and even if your timing is not great, even if your, like basic joke concept is not amazing, you might still get a little bit of a laugh out of it.
Yeah. So there's sounds, there's rhythm, there's the intonation, there's the pausing, there is the vowel length, right? It seems like a lot of the humor has nothing to do with the words coming out of your mouth necessarily. Like you could pick certain words to drive the point home even more, right? But almost it's like, boy, you should be able to do this with any topic. I should be able to talk about making bread, and I should be able to use these tools to make it funnier if that's my goal. Yeah, that's very interesting. And also what you said about these, we call them plosives, those sounds that kind of explode. So T's and D's and K's and G's and P's and B's, right? All of those, they have some kind of explosion happening there. And this is very interesting too. So what I'm seeing is it's the sound, but another way to amplify that is where is the sound within the word? Because here's something that a lot of people don't know. And for example, all these plosive sounds, at least in American English, when they're at the beginning of the word, they're the strongest. They're the strongest that you can make those explosions, the most air is coming out. And if it's in the middle and then at the end, it gets weaker, the amount of air, to the point where we have what's called unreleased versions of these sounds. We kind of hold the air back. We put our tongue in the position, right? But I'm going to hold the air back. And that's a whole separate thing. It depends on what's next. It's a fluency strategy. But I can see how at the end of a word, when I'm not going to explode it, if I then explode it, that makes it funny. That makes it sound funny. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of wiggle room with those plosive sounds that you don't get with other sounds. Like you don't have those opportunities with other sounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. Something else interesting just happened. You magically got a haircut and we're in the future?
I did. Dun, dun, dun. We are now, 6 months into the future? Maybe less. I don't know. But look around me.
25.
The YouTubers who are watching this, instead of just listening to the podcast, will notice a few changes. Number one, haircut. Yes, it's 2025 now. We're in the future. And look, whole new studio. What do you think?
It's a beautiful studio. I really like your new studio so much. It's really cool. We're filming a new ending because our old ending, it died. And so now we're trying something new.
Technology. Yeah, part of an episode is just missing. We're not really sure why, but that's okay. We're going to roll with this. And the last thing we were talking about was obviously comedians, and how they're using sound and words to be funny. But we're not really just talking about comedians, right? I mean, we can all use these kinds of strategies. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I think the takeaway from all of this for all of you non-comedians out there is that word order and sound can change everything. So for example, my partner is a non-native English speaker, just like your partner is a non-native English speaker. And sometimes she'll say things to me in all seriousness, but the way that she says it, the sounds that she hits harder will accidentally make her a little bit funny. Mm-hmm. And so we'll have a miscommunication, not about what she's saying, but about the spirit, sort of the soul of what she's saying. And so that's why it's important to think about this stuff, is because it can keep you from being misunderstood, not in a literal sense, but in a more implied, sort of unspoken kind of way. Mm-hmm. So it starts with word order, right? Like the words that we choose and the order we put them in can really change how we feel about what's being said. So if I'm in a negotiation, I probably don't want to be funny because I want more money, I want a better job, I want that better office. So I need to be careful not to say something in a jokey way because I want my boss to take me seriously and see that I'm being 100% all in on being an asset to the company. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to use any of these comedy strategies. I want to go the other direction and really make sure that I'm being heard the way I want to be heard.
Mm-hmm. And so there's things that we control on our end, my word order, the sounds that I'm choosing, right? Maybe even how my speech is connected. Of course, there's intonation as well. And I don't know about you, but also being a woman, right? Often we're perceived as either competent or kind, right? And it's hard to have both. So I think it's doubly important if you're a woman, if you're working in an area where not everyone speaks the same first language, right? And it's just an extra layer to think about because it's not vocabulary, it's not grammar. Those are usually the things we think about first in our second language. And even if you speak pretty well and your pronunciation is pretty good, hey, here's like something kind of really high level that I can think about, right? What extra sounds or words can cause the perception on the listener's end to be different or better, that I'm hoping for.
You just unlocked this random memory for me. I was living abroad for the first time in my life, and I was with a group of people being taught basically how to stay healthy just with everyday nutrition and what physical signs to look for to know when it's time to call the doctor. And this man who had English not as his second language, but as his third, was telling us this. And he was talking about how high your temperature can be. A very serious topic. But then he said something like, if your temperature is, X degrees, your brain is boiling. And the way he said it, he got the biggest laugh in the room. Like he was trying to tell us about a dangerous situation and he accidentally turned it into something very funny. And so it was just the way he said it. He just hit the B really hard. And, his face was super expressive. And the phrase that he used is not a phrase that any of us had ever heard in our lives. So when you surprise English speakers with a totally new phrase, we tend to take that as a joke. Like that's sort of how we play around with words. We use a more like standard phrase when we're being somber. So if he had said, your life is in danger, it is time to call a doctor, it is time to ask for help, none of us would have laughed. We would have all been like, oh, yes. Oh, that's very serious. And instead we were like, and I have to be aware, like, if I'm going to use a phrase that's maybe not a standard US phrase, it could be taken as something funny. Your brain is boiling is something no one had ever said to me in my whole life. And it really came across as funny, and so you just have to be aware of that stuff. So let's think about just for a second some other professions where the way you convey your message, the way you communicate your thoughts can really change the way people perceive you. So I'm sure that you've had the teacher who was accidentally funny. Like when you were in school, did you ever have that teacher where you were just like,
totally. Yeah.
Forehead slap all the time. And and I've been that teacher. I've had that teacher, and my mom was a teacher. And she would always make sure to have this very serious tone in class because she taught small children and it helped her students pay attention. And she was very careful what words she used and how she used them. So, it was always like very clear directions, like sit at your desk, take out your worksheets, always starting with the verb and then continuing with the instructions. But then if somebody was misbehaving, it was always just, that's not okay. And she would just leave it at that. Like she wouldn't go into a whole speech because those things can sometimes, they can get confusing or they can get funny sometimes. So when teachers go on too big of a rant, it can sometimes be hilarious. And so I think for teachers especially, it's very, very good to know because sometimes you want to be funny in the classroom, but a lot of times you don't. And so you have to be able to hear the difference.
And two things struck me there when you said that. Number one, intonation, right? I know when in my old teaching days when I was in a classroom, I had my teacher voice, right? I had my teacher voice.
Oh, yes.
And this one time I was in Philadelphia. It was at nighttime and I was driving around, right? And there was this guy who just like stopped his truck in the middle of the street, got out of the truck and started peeing in the street. And I was like, dude, I don't know if this guy's drunk or what, but I went up to him and I took out my teacher voice and I was like, that's not okay. You need to get back in your truck and you need to go. And I realized like, oh, I got that voice. I can use that intonation anytime I want, And the second thing that you reminded me of is like, often we forget that less is more, right? We forget that more vocabulary isn't always better, or some of those high academic words, they're not always going to be as useful. Sometimes simple phrases, like when you said start with a verb, often I find like starting with a noun, right? If I want to remind somebody of something, I'll say like door, right? And they're thinking, oh, door, what's wrong? Oh, I didn't close the door, right? And there's a different mental process that goes on there too. So choosing our words, choosing the order, like you said, I think can add a whole different layer to the perception that we never even thought of. You know what I mean? So we've got teachers. I imagine a lot of people work in international sales as well. This is something I might want to think of, Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to remember, if you're in sales, that sarcasm does not travel. One thing Westerners are really bad about when we go to the Eastern Hemisphere is we try and be sarcastic. They don't have sarcasm in the East, at least not in my experience. That may be limited to, what I saw. But I found that anytime a Westerner tried to tell a joke using sarcasm, which is, being over the top and being like, oh, it's so good, like that really dumb style of humor that we had in the 90s. If you try and use it with a non-native English speaker, especially someone from the Eastern Hemisphere, they will think you're being serious. They don't understand that that is a joke because it's all in the tone. Yeah. It's not in the words. And so you have to be aware of what doesn't travel. And you also have to understand, like you said, that less is more, and that intonation, eye contact, those things are going to keep you from being a joke or sounding like you're telling a joke and keep the negotiations going,
Exactly. These are all kind of like high level things that we don't think about. It's not high level vocabulary, for example, but it's getting back to the idea of like the connection and what I'm really trying to convey to the person, and how so much of that is nonverbal, or on a layer that we don't even register anymore. So I think this has been like a really interesting, fascinating experiment. We started out talking about comedy, really, and what sounds are funny, but really it's about humor too, and how the different cultures can view it. Maybe it sounds rude, right? Or maybe I did think you were being serious, and that's not something we know very well, For people like you and I who are living in another culture, like we have to think of that on both sides, how we're sending it, how we're receiving it. I don't know about you, but this is kind of always in the back of my mind because people are unaware, or maybe aware of it, but don't know how to kind of control it. And it's a very high level thing. And unless you're really thinking about these kinds of things, like most people don't even bring it up. So I really appreciate, Lindsay, you taking the time today to come here and talk about it. And I know that comedy is a passion of yours.
I could talk about this for like all night long. Like we could just pop some popcorn and stay up all night and talk comedy. It wouldn't even be a thing. Like it would be so fun.
I mean, you and I, when we get together, I think we just don't even stop often because that's part of it too. Like, I know that when I'm with, some people, I use specific vocabulary. I choose my words very carefully. Less is more, that kind of thing. But then when I get with you or somebody else, that's when I can hit those little jokes. And I'll use that word or phrase that most people wouldn't use or even know. And I can throw that in there. And that I'm doing it on purpose. And that it's me being funny, and playing with words. So like we could talk all day. Let's you and I get together again and do another podcast episode real soon where I have the same haircut in the new studio, maybe even in person. This would be great.
Yeah. Oh yes, an in-person episode. Let's do it.
Exactly. So probably also we could talk more about comedy. We could talk about intonation, all these other things. So if you guys are out there listening or watching this, like give us ideas. What do you think is funny? What do you want us to talk about? I think that would be great.
Oh, I would love to hear any comments from the listeners. What do you think we should get into? I have a topic that's very close to my heart that I have pitched to Bianca multiple times, and she still has not taken me up on it, but I think we should do it.
Okay, we're going to do it.
We should do it.
Okay, we're going to do it. We're not going to tell the listeners what it's going to be.
No, I'm not going to say what the topic is. We're
going to plan it, yes.
It actually sounds bad if I just give you the topic, but if you listen to the episode, I think you'd get really interested.
Exactly. So we're going to leave you with that, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks, Lindsay, and I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye.
See you soon. I never know where these discussions will meander to. Even months later, when we realize we lost part of the episode and had to make a date to refinish the conversation for you. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and please do send me a message about topics you'd like to hear about, at least around the topic of accents and pronunciation. I'm Bianca, your personal American accent coach, and I want you to know that your voice is your choice. Thanks for listening, as always, and I'll see you in the next episode.